I want to talk about the United Autoworkers Strike against the major automobile companies. Joe Biden took part in the strike. A little bit of an unusual scene. You've got a president of the United States who is on the picket line. And I'm looking at a picture of Biden. He's got a bullhorn. He's got a kind of a UAW type of cap. So he's trying to create a sense that he's a working class guy. He's fighting for the rights of the working class. And his statement was, record corporate profits should mean record contracts. It's time American auto workers got a fair deal. Now, first of all, what is a fair deal? Deals are negotiated between companies and workers, and the workers can negotiate individually or they can join a union and negotiate collectively. What's really happened with unions, and the reason unions have now become almost an extension, or union leadership has become an extension of the state, is that they rely on the Democrats in government to come and bludgeon the corporation during the negotiation and make the corporation buckle down and pay up what the union is demanding. So this is not real negotiation. It's an exercise of raw power with the government providing, in a sense, the fist that enables the union to get what it otherwise might not have been able to get. So the kind of romantic theory of unions, which is that workers need to be able to pool their resources and their power, sit down across the table, be treated as legitimate stakeholders, come up to reasonable settlements that enable the company to continue to be successful and make a profit, and the workers to be treated appropriately. All of this is out the window once the federal government gets involved. I mean, imagine having you're an executive for a car company, and there's the president of the United States on the picket line as if he's some sort of an auto worker himself. This is the way in which the sort of original philosophy of unions has now become twisted with the intervention of the state. Now, it's not that Biden was some great, it's not that he spent all day out in the sun. He's not going to do that. He spent 12 minutes at the UAW picket line, 1 hour in Michigan. Then he was on a plane to California for a high-level ritzy fundraiser. So this is how the Democrats do it. They round up the media. They show up there for a few minutes, take some photos. The whole idea is symbolism. What does Biden get out of it? This idea that Biden is rolling up his sleeves. He's sort of on the picket line, and he's the president of the working class. Now, Trump, of course, was also in Michigan. In fact, he was in Michigan in a sense, while the other Republican candidates were debating. Trump is like, I'm gonna give a talk to the auto workers. And Trump's talk was very interesting because he was making a point that gets completely lost in very often when you talk about these kinds of topics, and that is that the auto industry itself is being destroyed by lack of competitiveness. And this is not really something new. It's not something where we're learning now in 2023 that a whole industry can be brought to its knees. Why? We have already learned this before, and we haven't learned this before. We've learned it before with steel, and we've learned it before with other industries, but we've learned it before with the auto industry. If we just flash back some decades, we see that Detroit was one of the great cities of America. It was flourishing. It had the kind of wealth that, in fact, made even New York City begin to envy what was happening in Detroit. Beautiful homes, beautiful avenues, tree-lined streets, and so on. Detroit was actually a safe and prosperous place. Why? Because it was essentially, that wealth was built by the auto industry. And then what you had is people like Michael Moore's dad. This is actually the amusement of Michael Moore's first film, Roger and Me. It's all about like, oh, General Motors is closing down the plant and my dad is going to be out of a job. Never bothering to ask, isn't it the case that your dad was one of the guys, along with many others, who are pushing for Detroit to pay more and give more benefits and give more healthcare and give more this and give more that, and then suddenly it's cheaper to make cars not just in Japan or not just in other countries, but in South Carolina and other states that don't have the same kind of rules and regulations. So you have a combination of government regulations, in this case at the state level, and then you also have these demands on the part of these kind of unions which muscle their way. Either you give in or we're not even going to show up for work. And so the car companies do give in. But then what do? They raise prices, and suddenly nobody wants to buy these cars. They're not really worth the money. So we saw look at Detroit today. We're living with the debris of the collapse of the auto industry. And this is a lesson evidently that doesn't get learned. So they keep doing it. They act as if the real obstacle to higher wages are these corporate executives. They just don't want to pay us our fair share. That's not the problem. The problem is that in a competitive economy, you got to make products that cost a reasonable price that people are willing to pay. And so Trump's point is that the interests of the working class are not with the Democrats, but they're with preserving these industries in the first place so they can continue to provide jobs and opportunity. Guys, with my new movie coming up next month, I'd like to invite you to check out my Locals channel. That's going to be one of the platforms on which the movie will play. And I post a lot of exclusive content on Locals, content that's censored on other social media platforms. On Locals, you get Dinesh Unchained, Dinesh Uncensored. You can also interact with me directly. I do a live weekly Q&A every Tuesday, and no topic is off limits. I've also uploaded some cool films to Locals, documentaries, feature films, my films, filmed by other independent producers, and of course the big film coming up next month, Police State. I'll be giving you the inside scoop on Locals. If you're an annual subscriber, you can stream and watch all this content for free. It's also free to check out the channel, dinesh.locals.com. I'd love to have you along for this great ride. Again, it's dinesh.locals.com.